Hello and welcome to Punters Guide. We are going to be looking ahead to Trials Day this weekend. I'd like to say Martin Dixon has joined us, and you're going to be down at Cheltenham this weekend, Martin, for the few contenders looking to book their ticket to the festival in March.
Yeah, really looking forward to it, Matt. And something a little bit different this year as well, because we've got good ground at Cheltenham in January. Been dry since the first week of January. I think temperatures forecast to be about 12 degrees on Saturday as well. So it's meant to be dry. It's meant to stay dry. And we're looking at good ground. Usually at this meeting, we're looking at it being run in a complete mud bath. And that means that quite often horses don't necessarily go from this meeting and go on to the festival, because you are dealing with such different contrasting conditions, usually at least, when it gets to March and the festival. But this year could be a little bit different in that regard. You know, you'd expect the ground to be similar maybe come March to what it is on Saturday, and that might mean that the form holds up a little bit more at the festival this time around.
Yeah, maybe worth taking heed of the form a little bit more then. Right, we'll get onto the trials races shortly. Got a good handicap kicking off proceedings, though, in front of the ITV cameras. It's 155, which is kind of like a rematch of the Paddy Power and the December Gold Cups, isn't it? We've got Cool Cody in here as well, Spirit of the Games, Magic Saint. I mean, they've met plenty in recent months.
They have, yeah. I mean, to be honest, it's a tricky race, this, isn't it? I mean, the betting tells you that as well. It's wide open, even though the field size isn't huge. You've got a wide open betting heat. But there is a horse that catches my eye more than most, and that's Torn and Frayed, number 10 on the card for Nigel and Sam Twiston Davis. You look at last time out and he was pulled up at Haydock, so you've got to forgive that. But the ground was desperate at Haydock, and this horse isn't a heavy ground horse at all. So I think we can forgive Torn and Frayed that run at Haydock on that basis. As I say, the ground's going to be good at Cheltenham on Saturday. That'll be perfect for Torn and Frayed. And if you look at his previous record, the last 7 or 8 runs had all been very good. It'd been a model of consistency. And I do think that ground last time out at Haydock, it's specialist there. When it gets really, really boggy and testing at Haydock, some horses just do not handle it at all. And I think Torn and Frayed was one of them. Look at his earlier form. He ran in a couple of small field races, Ascot and Cheltenham, where he was forced to make his own running. That didn't suit him, I don't think. Prior to that at Cheltenham, it was only a 5-runner race in October, but he proved to be a really strong piece of form that he ran in October, behind Annual Invictus, Danny Kerwin, who won just earlier this week at Wincanton quite impressively, and Favois and Back on the Lash. 2 next time out winners were in 4th and 5th behind Torn and Frayed that day. So he's got course experience, jumped around the track a couple of times. I think the handicap has given him a chance, dropping him a couple of pounds, and the conditions will be much more in Torn and Frayed's favour tomorrow than they were last time out at Haydock.
Yeah, Tristan Davis has always loved a winner, don't they, at Cheltenham. Right, we've got a couple of shorties for the Nicky Henderson, Nico de Boinville and JP McManus. We've got John Joe Neal on the other one, but we've got 2 shorties for that team in the big trials. We're going to start with the Cotswold Chase, and Chantry House looking to get back to winning ways after pulling up disappointing the King George. Cheap pieces enlisted. Should we be concerned?
Yeah, I think a little bit. Certainly when you've been asked to take a short price. He was always likely to be a short price, because I suppose on his novice form last season, he deserves to be a short price to win what isn't the hottest renewal of the Cotswold. It has to be said. It looks a pretty weak renewal this year. But you are having to take a short price about a horse that ran no race at all when we last saw him. And prior to that, he'd been around Sandown and had 1 rival to beat. So we still don't really know about Chantry House in terms of his current frame of mind and his current well-being and form. And that it comes with risks attached, doesn't it? If you're backing him a shade of odds on, he's around that sort of price, near the even money mark. I think he does come with risks attached, as does the second in Simply Bets as well, who's potentially a non-stayer. I would go as far as saying probably a non-stayer, over in excess of 3 miles at Cheltenham. I think he'll be a little bit too keen to be able to see his race out. So the solid option for me, he might not be good enough if he probably isn't good enough if Chantry House does turn up and give his running. But number 1 on the card, right, you will get a good run for your money. He's very solid. He's got course form. He jumps well, travels well, really genuine, stays the trip thoroughly. So it might just fall apart for right. And like I say, he's the likeliest horse in the field to actually turn up and run his race, and perhaps that'll be good enough.
Yeah, he is solid, isn't he? Certainly. Right, we'll move on to the Cleve hurdle then. And I thought Champ was really spectacular at Ascot. Obviously, we've heard all about his jumping over fences. He's not the most natural, but I thought the staying hurdle division is his for the taking, especially with Classical Dream getting beat on Thursday. And I thought he could advertise his credentials here and prevent Paisley Park from landing a hat-trick at Cleves.
Yeah, absolutely. This isn't a favourite I can get against, to be honest, in Champ. I think he's dead solid. He came back with a bit of swagger at Ascot back hurdling. It was a really likeable performance. He travelled best. Then he looked a little bit vulnerable briefly, but he found a little bit more to assert his authority. I really like that comeback run. He's had a good bit of time since, 42 days since we last saw him. Nice time between runs. The ground will be perfect for him. He's got no problem with Cheltenham. We've seen him win there before. And he should outstay McFabulous and outclass Paisley Park in the way that he did last time out at Ascot. So it's his for the taking, I think, Champ, and hard to get against him at the top of the market.
Move on to the 3-4 then. This is the Ballymore trial over 2.5 miles, and got Hillcrest course distance winner here from New Year's Day, taking on Nicky Anderson's Barco Coastal. And well, 7 Barrels got an embarrassment of riches in the novice hurdle division. Yeah,
they have, haven't they? They've got plenty to put Balco Coastal sort of pitch him up against, I suppose. He's 2 from 2 this season. Hillcrest is 3 from 3 this season. Both of them very genuine, very progressive. But I'm going to take them both on with a horse that made a really bright start to his career at Aintree in early December. Number 5 on the card, North Lodge, for Alan King and Adrian Heskin. This is a horse that hadn't run in a bumper and a point to point in the way that most rules newcomers these days have done. So he was having his first race of any kind at all at Aintree, and yet he was still good enough to turn away Bombs Away, who himself was a previous winner, and Richmond Lake, who also had been an impressive previous winner on his previous start and has since come out and run with real credit last weekend in the Grade 2 at Haydock. And North Lodge was good enough to see them off the first time that he'd ever run in a race, and he was entitled to be green that day. So I thought it was a massive debut performance from North Lodge to be able to do that first time of asking. He's really exciting, and I think he's a big price tomorrow to be able to build on that.
There we are then. One for Alan King, the North Lodge in the Ballymore. We move on to Doncaster. Alan King got a runner in the big betting race of the day, really, isn't it? The Sky Bet Chase. He's got Canelo, one of a couple for JP McManus. But this is an absolute cracker. 17 go to post. We've got Midnight Shadow and Nutsville at the top of the weights. And creeping down there, Captain Nord, who's £10 lower than when third and favourite in this race 12 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, Captain Odds, he was fancied last time out at Kempton as well, wasn't he? And he was sent off joint favourite for the Badger Beer in early November, sent off favourite at Kempton last time out, but on neither occasion has he met up with expectations. So he's potentially thrown in Captain Ord if he bounces back to form. It's a really competitive race. DBC is where I would turn to for the bet in the race. Number 15 on the card for the Skeltons. I thought he shaped like a very, very well handicapped horse on his debut for the Skelton team last March at Sandown. He just ended up going a little bit too quick in front and shot his bolt and got pegged back by a very strong stayer in Fortescue. But it was a pretty good performance. I thought he should probably have won that day. I suspect that in a big field he'll be able to sort of take his time a little bit more. Harry Skelton, he's an 11-year-old, so he's a veteran, but we've seen the Skeltons win the Greatwood with a horse on the comeback trail already this season, so we know that he won't lack anything for fitness. And at his peak over hurdles, he was placed in Grade 1 company as a novice hurdler at DBC. So I think a mark of 135 is a lenient mark for him, and if he turns up as I expect him to in peak condition, I think he could be better handicapped than anything in that race.
Yeah, DBC's likely race, and he formed it with Tim Vaughan as well. First start since the wind up as well. So DBC, the big betting race. I'm just going to have another one from Doncaster for you as well, Martin. The race that precedes that, the River Don, which is a real stamina test. Although it's Doncaster, it's good ground. Still, the 3 miles takes some getting for these younger horses. And it's a race Ben Pauling's kind of mastered. He's won 3 of the last 6 renewals and just 4 runners. And he's got this knot at present. He has to find a little bit, admittedly, on the figures, but he's blinking for the first time. I thought he was interesting. We've got an answered prayers in here for Chris Gordon, who was entered at Cheltenham. This is where he goes. And Bridgenall for Henry Daly, won nice at Ludlow last time. And got form tying in with Green Book. Yeah,
it's not much of a race, this, for a graded race. I mean, it can happen that with the River Don. Sometimes it ends up cutting up into not the strongest of race. And I think that's been the case again this year. Not at present, as you said, blinkers go on him. I mean, I think the appalling factor will be well and truly played into his price to some extent, given the record of the stable in the race. And I'm not sure that on form, he's a particularly interesting horse in this type of race. I think, he was quite badly outpaced last time out at Fontwell before coming home to score an unlikely win, and that was only off a mark of 121. So I think there are more promising horses in the field than not at present, and chief amongst them would be Bridge North for Henry Daly. You touch on him. Ludlow winner last time out on soft ground, but he just looks a proper stayer, this horse. I was at Ludlow that day, and he really plugged his way up the running on soft ground out success that day. Now, the bare form's nothing flash, but I thought at the time this is a horse that's going to take his form to another level when he steps up in trip. He's granted that, and I think the slightly better ground at Doncaster than last time out will probably work in Bridge North's favour as well.
Bridge North and the River Dog. We've got a little bit of time, so we'll squeeze in the Mares Hurdle as well at 2:10. It was won last year by Miranda. I thought it was a tough renewal. There's a couple of the mares in the 140. She beat Floresta quite easily. I think this is an easy renewal. And Amish actually won at Ludlow last time. She gave away 12 lengths at the start, and the horse she beat, she was given £18 to, has won again since. The form looks solid. Can she be beaten when she looks to retain her crown?
She's got a very good chance, hasn't she? I must admit, I think she's by far the likeliest winner of the race, but I do think there's a value play in the race. Western Victory's turned out very quickly after running at Ascot last weekend, but she ran over 3 miles last week. She went off too quick in front, and this is a mare that, although she has won over 3 miles earlier on this season at Clonmel, she's got more than enough boot to be running over 2 at Doncaster on decent ground. She actually won a listed event at Goran earlier on in the season on good ground over 2 miles, and I think she went off quick at Ascot on soft ground over 3 miles last weekend, and that exaggerated the distance that she was beating. She ended up beating 35 lengths, but I think she shaped like she was in decent form. Obviously, Emma Lavelle has seen enough in her this week to think that she's worth turning out again quickly, and she's not far behind Miranda, if at all, on the pick of her performances, and yet you're going to be getting a much bigger price about Western Victory, probably because she's turned out so quickly after on paper a heavy defeat at Ascot last weekend. But I think although Miranda's the likeliest winner of the race, perhaps your value in there will be number 2 Western Victory.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, they're the top 2 rated in that contest. Right, let's get a best bet of the weekend then for you. Cracking races at Cheltenham Trials. They're Doncaster action as well. What are the idea of a strongest bet this weekend?
Yeah, I really like Torn and Frayed in that handicap chase. He's going to be a big price, and you've got to take a chance on him coming back to form after being pulled up last time out. But he's going to be a fair price, competitive race, back him each way. But I think if he comes back to his October form at the track, he's got every chance.
There we are. Then Torn and Frayed, the bet of the day. Of course, trial weekend. We've got Chantry House on trial for the Gold Cup champ. Paisley Palmer Fabulous on trial as well for the Stayers. A fantastic weekend. Martin will be down there at Presbury Park. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully, put in the direction of a few winners, and whether you're back in this weekend, the best of luck.